All right. Thanks y'all for joining us for another editorial board conversation. Sorry that this one isn't live, but we're glad you can check it out. Just really quickly, I want to go around the Zoom room and make sure that everyone knows who's here and who's asking the questions. I'm Josh Brodesky. I'm the editorial page editor of the Express-News. I'm also joined by Mark Medici, who is the publisher, Carrie Clack and Gloria Padilla, who are also on the editorial board, and Scott Huddleston, who covers Bexar County and so much more. And our guest today is Bexar County Judge Nelson Wolff, who made a lot of news last week when he basically did a workaround on the governor's orders, and now he issued his own order mandating masks for whenever people step inside businesses. So that would apply to employers and customers. Judge, we've talked about this a little bit informally, but tell us a little bit about how you were able to kind of see this path forward in terms of mandating masks when it's become such a political issue, and why you think this is important.
Well, first of all, we saw, exponential rise in cases as well as what's happening at the hospital. I think just yesterday, again, we had 538 more cases, and we tripled a number of people in the hospital since June the 1st. We tripled the number of ICUs, we tripled the ventilators. And so it just went up exponentially. I don't know that anybody really thought it was going to get this bad. But if you were going around the community, you could see people pretty well had ignored the recommendation to wear a mask and really, had kind of thought everything was okay, I guess, and let their guard down. And the witnesses, they were our last line of defense. And then one by one, they decided not to require masks to come into their business. But as you well know, and you pointed out, we had that letter from May the 12th from the Attorney General specifically saying that we could not levy fines or do anything with employers. And that was response to the May 5th order that the governor had put out, prohibiting fines and not making masks mandatory. But I also knew that a lot of people were calling the governor. It was coming from various large businesses that were experiencing a problem with their customers. It was coming from like UT Health Science Center, from some of the health advocates. So I knew there was a lot of pressure on him. And then on June 16th, when he had that little sentence in there, well, you dummies, you don't know how to do this thing, and why don't you wake up and do it? Well, obviously we were under Attorney General saying we couldn't, but I saw that little line and I thought that was a little bit of an opening, and so took a chance and wasn't for sure what he was going to do, and he went along with it. Very quick. I got a call from Louise Sines, who's his chief of staff, about probably, less than an hour before the governor announced it, telling me he was going to do that. And I said, wow, that's terrific. But I don't know, he's got a press conference at 2:00 today, and I'm not sure what he's going to say then. But we've got people on the ground. I got a text from Mayor Nuremberg today. He's putting out city staff, going around the city, checking the businesses. Sheriff Salazar is doing the same thing. And, we hope to have cooperation. It's, without cooperation of the employers and the customers, it's very, very difficult thing to enforce. So we've got to have some good participation. I think we will.
How do you, obviously city staff and county staff are going out there, but realistically, how do you enforce this measure? We're talking about $1,000 civil penalty, right? So are you gonna have to actually, I guess, make examples out of businesses that don't require masks? Or I guess I've just wondered if it's really enforceable.
Well, I know that the city has more power than the county does. In fact, in his text message today, Mayor Nuremberg said, their last resort is cutting off utilities. He did that, as you may know, when think it was a vape shop that was violating the orders at that time. And so they have a additional power that the county doesn't have. So we hope never to impose a fine. There will be warnings, there will be encouragement. And we also are conscious that we don't want, the employer or the store to get in a fight with their customer too. They can just simply call the sheriff or call the police if their customer is causing disturbance. But again, fines and utility cutoffs aside, we got to have cooperation from the employers. I hope they understand what's happening, and if they have any regard for their employees and their customers, they'll insist they do it.
I'm going to ask one more question, then I'll put myself on mute here. But with the increase, we're seeing a dramatic increase in positive cases at this point, and I'm just wondering, what do we know about who is getting sick and how people are getting sick? Do we have any insight about where they're going to get? It's one thing if they're getting sick at work. It's another thing if they're getting sick at a bar. I feel like that kind of differentiation matters. So what do we know?
Well, for the first time, we had a little bit of information from tracking. It did say bars. I would think the ones that probably have the problem are the larger ones where you have, which was the dance halls, I guess you would call them. And of course, when people are drinking, they don't quite think as good as they do when they're not. And so I'm sure they let their guards down. So we know that's a problem. The state does have some power there, that really more power than anybody's got, because they have the liquor permits. And so they could, be a helping hand in this. I don't know if they will, but they could. The other place is gyms. Tracy and I always went to the gym up the street here, and she's a fanatic on making sure everything is wiped down right and everything. And then when this started, we ended up buying a treadmill and doing it here. But gyms are a problem because everybody's touching the same thing, And then surprisingly, I didn't think this was correct, but I don't know. They were talking about automobile dealerships. I did talk to one person involved in that, and he said, look, it's not our people. People just were coming in here without masks, and there wasn't anything we could do about it.
Hey, Judge, I want to go back to the employee patron. There was a video yesterday, I think from Florida, a Walmart employee physically stopped or tried to stop a patron from coming into Walmart. I am absolutely in favor of your ruling. I think that this whole notion of not wearing a mask, I'm very perplexed as to why this has become such an ordeal. I guess my question for you is that, have you and the mayor discussed how you will give guidance to HEB, for example, in terms of what they should or should not do if a patron or a customer walks into their facility without a mask? Is your directive for them to either call the city police or the sheriff's department, or how would you like to see businesses, I guess, enforce this order?
Well, obviously that's the most difficult part. I know that when businesses before were requiring it without a mandate, customers would really get in their face and would really get pretty nasty with them, and they didn't want a confrontation. We don't want a confrontation here because some of the people that are really radical on this, could get violent. So we don't want that to happen in the store. We want the notice on that front door. We want them to tell their customers that they should have the mask on. If a person refused to do it, it's up to the store to call someone. To call either the police department or the sheriff's department and say this person should not be in here. But we don't want them to get into a fight. That could turn real nasty, and that's what a lot of these people that are against this, that's what they want. They want a confrontation. As you may remember, up in Dallas, I guess the city or the county overreacted and actually tried to put an employee in jail. A owner of a salon in jail. And so that became a cause celebrity because he was all over the state. We don't want that to happen. And that's what we're afraid that somebody might cause a real nasty problem.
So Judge, have you had any formal pushback on your order from any of the businesses?
Yeah, I heard a couple. I just forwarded it to the sheriff a little while ago that I think this one owner of a business said, see if I can find it for you real quick, said that he didn't care what some office holder would say. She's going to do damn well what she wants to do, and she's not going to comply with it. So we do have their address, and we do know what business it is, so we'll be going after today.
So what do you do with you have a whole business? It's not just a customer at the door. If you have a whole business that's not compliant.
Yeah, that's the one that we can really come down on. Like I say, it's a fine for $1,000 for every offense. That has some impact, but the city really has the major impact if somebody really becomes bad, like that vape shop was. Ron says they could, cut the utilities off.
So are we going to see names of these businesses on your daily reports on who on the coronavirus statistics?
I don't know. I really don't. I really believe only very, very few will do that because they got to remember they're putting themselves at a lawsuit problem by not following it. If somebody connects it there, and we're tracing them now, I know there's a sensitivity already just on the groups, not just one business. But there's already sensitivities when you say bars or when you say that's where it's coming from. So I really think the pressure is going to be on them. I think there'll be a few that won't, but I think most will try to do it right. And, really that's only, it's one of three great principles, social distancing, mask, and sanitation, and I believe if we would do all three of those, I think we'd be okay. But if you don't have support of the public and support of the employers, it's not going to work.
What sort of support have you all, has the city and the county provided to businesses in terms of supplies or signage?
Well, what we're starting, I think our first one is going to be on June the 20th. We bought 1 million masks, the county did. And I think on June the 24th, we're going to start distributing them out at the Coliseum. It's 2 days from now. And then on the 27th, we'll be over to our center where the bibliothèque is there. And then they're trying to reach, organization groups like the Restaurant Association if they want to get some. So we have 1 million of them. So we want to make them available to the smaller businesses.
Judge, we had a story in today's paper about Fiesta Texas, about the theme parks reopening. I guess I went into reading that story personally a little bit skeptical about why they would open. And I came away fairly impressed with the steps Fiesta Texas is taking, but I'm just curious to hear your thoughts about whether it's really wise to have theme parks reopen at a time when, and I realize that's beyond your control, but here we are seeing these staggering increases in numbers, and we're gonna have a lot of people in these settings.
Yeah, it's dangerous. There's no doubt about it if they don't enforce it. The good thing about it is, though, that both Fiesta Texas and SeaWorld are outside, and that's better than being inside, where you have air circulation, everybody's kind of pushed together. But that is a concern. I would assume it's going to be a really hard thing for the operators to keep a track of, but I know they're very sensitive to it, and that they will be doing their best. Is these larger gatherings that are the more dangerous piece, and I think we may be a good year away before people are packed into the arena or to the dome or places like that.
Could you also speak to what type of communication your office has with the governor's office? And I guess, I feel like as an observer, sometimes it seems like the communication isn't the strongest between local officials and the governor's office. And we may be entering a situation where you all need to potentially ask him to dial back capacities, to dial back his reopening plan. And I'm just curious to know if your communication is strong enough that you can raise those questions and have them reasonably considered.
Well, I'm anxious to see what he has to say today. I'm not sure what that's about. We'll see what he has to say. The only link I have is with Luis Saenz, who's the chief of staff. I've known Luis for a long time, and so I do have communication with him. I don't have any real direct communication with the governor to speak of, but I do with him. And like I say, he was the one that called me before the governor made his remarks. So I don't really know what to say. I know that the larger gatherings, the more danger it is. Even in Tulsa, it looked like the people realized what a danger that was. And I think only 6,000 showed up to an auditorium of 19,000 for the president. So it's these larger gatherings where, people are together and they're together a long period of time. One other piece of that is that, they test it. They normally say, if you're within close distance of somebody for 10 minutes or longer, it's a really, really good chance you're gonna get it if he has it. But if you're just passing somebody outside, I'm talking about, it's not as likelihood. But I just don't know how many people are going to be coming into Fiesta, Texas, and how collapsed the crowds will be when they go to a line to get on there. It's going to be interesting to watch and see what happens there.
Judge, I know that you initially had wanted to have some kind of regulatory power to, enforce a mask rule against individuals. And do you now still wish that you had that as opposed to enforcing it through the businesses in terms of having the desired effect of containing COVID-19?
Well, it would be best to have both. The businesses gives us a unique opportunity, because if you're going to go out somewhere, it's likely, you're going to go out to shop somewhere, or you're going to go to a restaurant, or you're going to go to some place, a retail store. It's likely where you're going when you go out. And so they're really a strong line of defense there. But yeah, it would be great if it was mandatory and a fine on anybody, but we'll have to see how this works. Hope it does.
And Judge, I also wanted to ask you why you always are seen wearing a scarf or a bandana in public, because I know that some people in Bexar County don't necessarily have the means to go online and order a mask. And so I'm wondering if you wear that as kind of a statement to say that this is good enough for the county judge, and it's good enough for you as long as you have something covering your face.
Well, I personally like it, I must admit, because with the cover here, I can go pull up and down depending on whether I'm close enough to anybody. It's a lot easier to handle. But it depends on where you're going to get. It's fairly inexpensive, I guess. And I don't know. I hear different prices on masks today. I'm not sure what the latest is, and I know a lot of them have been given out. But to me, it's easier to handle.
Judge, how bad do you think the numbers would have to be before you would consider it would be a good idea for us to be reimposed with the stay-at-home orders?
Well, the only, I don't think we'll go back to that. The economic devastation is huge. We find ourselves in what I would consider serious financial condition with the federal government. You know, as a group, we can only consume what we produce, except for debt. And the debt is just off the charts. And at some time, there's going to be a financial consequences of that, much like it was in 2008, when all the false loans were made. So we've got to work, I believe. Now, the question becomes, is really entertainment work? Is that something that's critical? Whether it's pro sports or big crowds like that, I would say right now that is not possible to do, or it shouldn't be done. So, but I think the essential retail, restaurants, hopefully someday the hotels will come back. I think we're a long way from there, but we do have to work to produce. And like I say, the federal government, nobody seems to care about the debt anymore. It used to be concerned, but doesn't seem to be a concern of anybody anymore.
So Judge, since you brought up some of the economic situation that we're in, you obviously just spoke about the federal government, but you also are talking about the local economic situation. I was wondering if you can offer your thoughts on where you believe that hotly debated 1/8 cent sales tax should go. Before COVID-19, you were championing Via Reimagined and public transit. Now we see Ron Nirenberg pushing for workforce redevelopment potentially as a use of those funds. Of course, there's also aquifer protection. So, how would you, as a former mayor and as the county judge, how would you like to? Where do you think those funds should be directed?
Well, the mayor and I talk about it quite frankly. In fact, we were just talking about it again this weekend, and I'm going to follow his lead on it. And some discussions are going on now that maybe there should be an election that addresses both. I'm not sure about the technicalities of splitting that eighth or how you vote or what you do on it, but it might be a combination of addressing public transit in some sort of fashion as well as workforce. So I know that's, he's thinking about that, and he's talking with the city staff about it, and I think that might make some sense. With respect to VIA itself, I'm constantly in argument with them that they just kind of treadmill organization. And I really believe that public transit's going to have to be more flexible in what they're doing. And because ridership's way down, and I think it's going to stay down for a while. So I believe using technology, partnerships with the private sector, all the things they can do are really important. I think we can forget about the big fast bus driving down a freeway somewhere. I don't think that's there anymore, but I think some of the things VIA is talking about, I think are very smart. They're talking about collapsing the frequency of the rides within roughly 410, and then using other modalities outside. That makes some sense. But they're going to have to, be a lot more inventive and a lot more, flexible in how they provide, whether it's a small vehicle or a big one or whatever.
So just taking the conversation a little bit different direction, what are we going to be able to see at the early voting sites and on election day in the next few weeks?
Well, that really bothers me also. As you know, we were not successful in the mail-in ballot, but the Texas Supreme Court made a really interesting statement there where they said, you can't claim that if you're fearful of coronavirus, that you can't use that as an excuse to get a mail-in ballot. But then they go and say that, look, it's up to the person to decide whether they got a health issue or whether they've got a physical disability, and we're not going to question that. So they left it a little bit open for people to maybe get more mail-in ballots. We're going to do okay in this runoff. I think it's July the 14th or something like that. I think we're ready for it. Jackie ordered more mail-in ballots, or envelopes, I guess I should say. But when we get to November, that is a real concern. It's going to be very difficult, I think, because the average age of our judges are 72, I believe, and of course they're vulnerable to the COVID-19. The mask issue. I hadn't thought about this, but I would think we have maybe the authority also to require masks there for voters when they come in. Wow, I never thought about that. I need to check that out. I know we require masks and we require temperature tests and everything else when you come in the courthouse. I think we may be able to require that. That would at least be some safeguard for the people that are coming in to vote. We got elderly people running the polls.
What about location? Do you think that some of these school districts might be hesitant to have masses of people showing up on their grounds?
Well, I know that they were, Jackie would have more information than I have, but I know a lot of them were concerned about the fact that, you can carry a gun around, and they don't want that on school grounds, and they don't want people in there that are, that are not protecting themselves. So that's been a problem. Now, the good thing about this is we do have that new voting system where you can vote anywhere. And I would think that we would need to collapse our voting sites somewhat in this election, the November election, instead of trying to spread everybody around. I think we got 300 and some odd voting sites. Maybe we'd be able to have 200 and some odd and really have them staffed right and more capacity there. But it does worry me about the November election, because last election, which is the gubernatorial year, which was a very unusual year, we had 500,000 people vote. Usually we have about 3. So now you're coming to the November election, presidential election. I wouldn't be surprised if we had 600,000-700,000 people vote. So it is worrisome if we could rely on the mail-in ballot, but of course they struck that down. But still, more people, I think, should ask for that if they have any concern about their health or concern about a disability.
Could you,
do you vote? I'm sorry. Do you vote in person?
Do I vote in person? I usually vote right down at the courthouse in an early vote. Is what I do.
Could the county set up tents where people voted outside, since outside is better than inside?
Well, I mean, you could do that. November, the heat won't be quite as bad. July, I'm not too worried about, because maybe we'll only have 100,000, 200,000 voted the most. So July won't be a problem. But November, you could do it in November because it's not so hot. Yeah, you could. We couldn't have it in the courthouse for the runoff because we do require temperature tests and masks. Of course, that was before this last go round. Now I have to check on that. I just haven't thought about that.
I can see your wheels turning. It's the COVID life we all have to live. Where can we go? How do we do this?
Yeah,
it's very complicated.
Election day. Yeah.
Hey, Judge, I think this is I'm with Josh. It's interesting to kind of have this conversation and watch your wheels turn on it. And I think that it shows that the way that you're having to tackle this is no different than so many of us, and how we manage it with our families on a day in and day out basis. I want to stay on this kind of line of questioning, but shift it a little bit. What discussions are you having inside of Bexar County with the schools as we begin to think about going back to school? I think one of the great challenges of this pandemic, and I live it on a daily basis with a 17-year-old daughter, is that the hospitalization rates and the with people under the age of 19 is basically null. So they, I think, are growing more and more resistance to any participation in any mask wearing or any of this, because they're like, hey, I'm not going to get sick. And so as you deal with the schools and you deal with this notion of wearing masks or even coming back to schools, I guess my question is, what discussions are you having with the districts inside of Barron County to manage this?
Well, the only one that I've kept up with fairly close is San Antonio Independent School District. We're going to do a bibliotech in one of their schools, probably in about a year. And what Martinez was thinking is that he would offer choices where you could do online at home if that's what you wanted to do, and they provide the Wi-Fi and everything to be able to do that. That he was talking about smaller classes in it and kind of rotating. So I guess every district will have a different take on how to do it. I would think, I don't know, I would think the governor will probably stick with his order to have them open again. It's really a horrible problem because I know in the San Antonio Independent District, they lost 1,900 students because they couldn't track them down. They don't know where they are. They were not connecting in, even though they provided them everything. They lost 1,900 students. I'm not sure how it is in the rest of them. But if you don't have a parent at home and you're relying the kid to stay at home, you know, most teenage kids aren't going to do that. So I think it may vary, but I think they're going to work it out where smaller classrooms rotate, et cetera, and be able to get it done.
Judge, have you had a lot of inquiries from other counties that have adopted a similar rule regarding the masks that is enforced through the businesses? Because I know that, for example, Cameron County has a new rule that they put in effect that's almost exactly like the one here. And I'm wondering what other counties might have been in touch with you and you know, who they might have talked to, whether it's Larry Roberson or Andy Segovia with the city.
Well, you know, the only one that I'm not real good about these statewide organizations, but I did talk to Judge Jenkins, and he passed it in Dallas County. It was controversial up there. I believe he passed it on a 3-2 vote. And I'm not sure. I know Linda Hidalgo in Harris County wanted to do it. I assume she did. I'm not sure, but I haven't checked to see who's exactly doing what. Other than I did get the call from Dallas County.
Any other questions?
Yes, can we talk a little bit about the jail? What are y'all doing there to keep the numbers down?
Well, you know, it was interesting to me that, you know, we had that little explosion there, and we had brought on Ruth from the Health Science Center and Seth Mitchell, and both of them started having daily calls with the sheriff and with the University Hospital System. And they launched this test everybody kind of principle, and by segregating. And so I was wondering whether that was going to work or not. And it worked, I must say. And we're practically down to nothing now. So now what we've done, instead of randomly testing people in the jail, and we have about 3,400 there, I think, right now. What they're doing now, first we used to take the temperature, ask all the questions, you know. Now we're actually doing the test when they come in, so that we will know if they have it or not. The jail rotates. It isn't like a nursing home. You know, we'll have 2,000 in one month and maybe 2,000 out. So it's a rotating population. So I think they made a good decision to test at the front and find it early on. So they've done a remarkable job there, I must say.
Are any of the detainees hospitalized?
No, I don't think we have any now. At one time we had 5. I don't know if I got that latest report or not. At one time we had 5. I don't think we have any now. Yeah, it was pretty bad there for a while. But they did a good job of segregating them.
How is the health of the employees at the jail holding up? Have you all had very many scares, tests, come back positive?
My report's a little stale that I have here in front of me. It was June the 18th. We had 3,500 people in jail. We had only total of 26 with symptoms now. Many of them had recovered, and we had 7 in the infirmary, and none in the hospital. And deputies, we still have some deputies out. I think law enforcement still has 41 of them out now. My date's a little off on this, and University Hospital had 8 of them out. So we still have some of the deputies and University Health System people that had tested positive and are out right now, that 14-day requirement.
Judge, you had mentioned the jail population being at 3,400, 3,500 inmates. And of course, we're also at a moment where there's a lot of discussion about racism and policing and systemic racism and inequity in the criminal justice system. Has this moment elevated your conversations with the judiciary about implementing bail reform? Obviously, you've been calling for it for some time, and they haven't really been listening to you, but maybe that's changed?
I don't know. Your editorial board has been very strong on that, and we made some headway. We had a big blow up, and changed magistrates and everything, but they still don't have in place the actual policy that needs to be put in place. They've resisted that. The county courts have resisted that. But individually, they are doing better, and the magistrates are doing a good job now, and many more of them are using personal recognizance bonds. That's what happened at the state level, in my opinion. The bail bond industry got to the governor and stated, well, because they hate us to give personal recognizance bonds. And I think they got to him, so that's why he issued that order. If anybody has any sort of violence in their whole life, you can't get them out on a personal recognizance bond. So that backed us up about, 200 or 300 people that should have got out on a minor misdemeanor. But the bail bond industry, has been the biggest detriment to what we're trying to do. And of course, we know they fund judges and they fund a lot of candidates. And so it's really continue to be a problem. It's really to make any meaningful reform, it's going to have to come in the Texas legislature. Senator Whitmire, who he was there when I was there 40 years ago, still there. He's tried every year, and they managed to screw it up. There could be a big wave change in the legislature this year. There's 9 seats. If the Democrats win 9 net new seats, they take over the Texas House, and it may be a little bit of difference. Although, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, because I see as many Democrats caving in as I do Republicans, maybe even worse with Democrats. I shouldn't probably say that.
Yeah, I was going to say, last session, it was a Democrat who carried that.
No, you're right.
Democrat out of Mission, I think. So, I see bipartisan support for reform, but also bipartisan obstacles. So, yeah. Are you sure you want to retire?
You see, I'll be 80 in October, so I'd be 82 at the end of this term. I want to for sure.
It was a pretty savvy political move there with the masks. That's why I asked. So, you know, there's something to be said about experience.
The only thing I can tell you, if you want to learn how to do things like that, play poker.
Well, we've always said that you'd beat me at poker, but maybe I would hold my own with you at chess. I don't know.
Chess, I couldn't beat you. Poker, I might could.
I once in a game of 5-card draw. Is that what it's called? 5-card draw? I don't even know. 5-card stud. Anyway, I played 3 pairs.
Oh, you really did good.
Which gave me the nickname as, it was at a different newspaper, everyone called me 3-pair.
Think if we did a good game together, you could come?
I'm everybody's favorite poker player.
Who's my favorite?
No, I said I'm everybody's favorite poker
Oh,
player.
yeah, they want you.
Yeah. Any other questions for the group?
Judge, I wanted to ask you because I believe that you're one of the first to come up with this idea of enforcing the mask use through the businesses. And I believe that you were one of the first, if not the first, to have a local order regarding price gouging.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what you feel that you've done that was writing out front on issues during the COVID-19 pandemic, and whether you have any regrets about anything that you might have done that you feel now was a mistake.
Well, you know, the price gouging thing we put in there may have had some detrimental, but we really never had any cases on it. I think the Attorney General, though, on the price gouging has enforced a couple of places where people were doing that. You know, you know, we're really not going to know how good we've done or how bad we've done till many years from now. It is such a evolving spread of COVID-19, so fast and so furious, and we don't know where it's taking us. We don't know. I thought we would go through the summer pretty good, and you know, this theory was heat would help us. Well, it hadn't, and then we say there'll be another wave in November. So I don't know, you know, there's some things maybe prove that we did wrong and some right. But I think it's a long way off in judging how we all responded to this thing.
Judge, can you give us a little bit of insight what's happening with nursing homes? They were up in the forefront for a long time. They sort of faded into the background.
You know, that is the one great success story that we've had. As you know, we had, 18 deaths, I think, at the Southeast nursing home. And then we put in place, I guess it's been several weeks ago now, where we tested, I think, 10,000 people in all the nursing homes in Bear County. The fire department did a terrific job. Then we created that River City over there to kind of collapse those with COVID. The interesting thing about that is because everybody heightened attention on it and everything, we only have about 30 some odd people over at River City that have been transferred. So they've done a great job on that. And I must say the nursing homes, you know, really done well. We've had some exceptions. We've had problems at Rio admission trails, and but by and large, I mean, it's just a handful of them now.
Has the county received any complaints about people who have not been able to get into nursing homes or that they've been discharged? That story in the New York Times yesterday was really troubling about people being discharged. I mean, not because any of these are taking in COVID patients, but because maybe they're higher risk or that there's concerns about their health.
Now, I saw that story about people being pushed out because they weren't very comfortable. I haven't heard any of those here about that. We hear complaints about people that want to go visit, you know, and can't do it. I haven't heard any complaints about people being pushed out of the nursing home long way here.
Thank you.
think that might do it. I think
All right.
that might be all our questions. You're off the hot seat, Judge.
Good talk to you guys.
Judge, thanks for all your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Bye-bye.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.